The topic I'm going to talk about today is a pretty big hobby of mine, and that is fantasy football. I'm going to talk about the wide receivers I look to acquire on my team. There's a lot of different things you could look at in terms of fantasy football. This is just a small subset of data that you could look at into acquiring on your team to give your chance the best probability of winning. The beautiful thing about fantasy football is you try to make predictable the unpredictable, which is sports. On a week-to-week basis, you don't know what players are going to provide, and you're looking to get a season-long production. And because you don't know week to week, you're trying to take that unpredictable and make it predictable over a 17-game stretch season. There's different variables that go into this, different statistics that go into this. I like to think about it as a macro to micro scale. Like on the macro level, what I look for, the basis of any wide receiver I look to acquire would be, are they getting on the field? And the statistic I use for this is route participation. Route participation is the percentage of routes ran to the team's pass attempts. So, for example, if a team is going to attempt 35 passes in a game, I would like my wide receivers to be participating in 32 to 35 routes on those pass attempts by their team. This is just simple stuff because in order to score fantasy points, or in order to have even the opportunity to score fantasy points, you need to be on the field and be participating in the situations where the fantasy points are presentable. After that, I want to know, is this player commanding the ball how they need to get the type of production I'm looking for on a winning fantasy football team. What I look for in this is target share. Now, target share takes the percentage of targets that player commands over the team's pass attempts. So if a team attempts 30 passes and that a particular player gets 10 targets of those 30 passes, that's a 33% target share, which would be considered very high. This is just trying to get consistency in the player on a week-to-week basis. This is one of those statistics that are pretty consistent in a player week to week, year to year. Week to week, it could vary a little more. Like he could have a really high week of about 28, and then the next week could have a really low week for him at about 16. But over the course of a season, year to year, a player's target share tends to be around 2 to 3% of each other. So an elite player can get from like 23 to 26% target share. Target share is super important because it shows an avenue of production for a given player. This helps with looking at players who need a unsustainable amount of efficiency on a week-to-week basis versus a player who has a pretty solid floor and fantasy points on a week-to-week basis. You tend to want to stay away from those boom or bust type players. Even though they'll tend to score a lot of points one week, they could also easily not score many points another week. And target share is a great statistic for that. So if a guy's not getting many targets, he has to be extremely efficient on said targets to put up the points that you were looking for. At the end of the day, we were looking for sustainability of production over a 17-week season. And these are just a couple of statistics that I use to point me in the right direction of making something that is deemed unpredictable a little more predictable.